Good afternoon. My name is PJ, and I would like to thank you for joining the Oregon Employment Department for our Unemployment Insurance Temporary Rural Listening Session for Thursday, October 14th, 2021. We will start in a few minutes. Okay, we're going to give it a little bit more time while people come in. This listening session is being simultaneously interpreted in Spanish, Russian, Vietnamese, and Cantonese. If any of you would like to have this webinar simultaneously interpreted, please follow the instructions on the slide. You're going to click the interpretation box in the bottom Zoom bar. Then you're going to choose your preferred language. The presenter's voice will be lowered while the interpreters speak over it. You can choose to mute the presenter if you want. These instructions also will be put in the chat box. It's important to realize that we cannot look into or resolve any person's claim or business's issue in this public forum, and it is not safe to put your personal information like a social security number or a business identification number in the chat or question boxes in this public recorded webinar that will be posted online. And so again, we're going to wait just a couple more minutes before getting started. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Lindsay Leahy, the Unemployment Insurance Division Director for the Oregon Employment Department. Go ahead, Lindsay.
Thanks, PJ.
I'm going to pin you so everyone will see you.
Perfect. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's listening session. During the next 90 minutes, we would like to gather your perspectives on the updates to the availability for work eligibility requirement for unemployment insurance benefits as we explore the possibility of making these changes permanent. The purpose of unemployment insurance benefits is to provide a temporary, partial wage replacement to individuals who are out of work through no fault of their own. These benefits help keep individuals in their local communities, create an available workforce for local businesses, and provide economic stability to local economies. We saw this in action during the pandemic, where from March 15th of 2020 through September 20th of 2021, unemployment insurance benefits provided an infusion of over $10.9 billion into Oregon's economy. Unemployment insurance benefits are paid weekly based on the individual meeting all eligibility criteria, including being able to work, being available for work, and actively seeking work for each week that an individual claims benefits. The temporary amendment to Oregon Administrative Rule 471-030-0036 modifies the availability for work requirement so that workers who are seeking shift-based work only need to be available for at least one shift instead of a minimum of 2 shifts, which was the requirement under the old rule. For work that isn't shift-based, workers need to be available for full-time work. In most occupations, this is 40 hours per week. However, for some occupations, full-time work is fewer than 40 hours. Under the old rule, a worker needed to be available for work during all the usual days and hours of the week customary for the type of work they were seeking, which, depending on the industry, could add up to that individual needing to be available for more than 40 hours in any given week. We have notified people receiving benefits about the rule amendment, and our online temporary eligibility rule FAQ has more information. To find the FAQ, go to unemployment.oregon.gov, click on Frequently Asked Questions, and scroll down to Temporary Availability Rule Change. If you would like to read the rule itself, please visit oregon.gov/employ/agency and click on Administrative Rules. I'll wrap up by saying, as a result of the pandemic, the labor market today looks and acts differently from what it did prior to March of last year. And the Employment Department wants to keep step with those changes by updating our eligibility requirements while continuing to remain within the federal framework for the program. And we believe this change helps us do that. I look forward to hearing your comments and questions, and thank you for your participation today. And with that, I'll hand it back over to PJ.
So I hope you can hear me now. And thank you, Lindsay. Now we're going to move on to the details about today's listening session. This webinar is being recorded, and we will post it to our webinar page after this listening session.
Sorry, everybody. One moment.
I apologize. So I am back now. There is an issue, and I really appreciate your patience on this. So we're going to move on. And again, I do apologize. So we'll move on to the details about today's listening session. This webinar is being recorded, and we will post it to our webinar page after this listening session has ended. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please raise your hand and I will call on people in the order hands are raised. Since this listening session is limited to 90 minutes, you will have up to 5 minutes to comment. If you do not want to speak, but you have a question you would like answered, please put your question in the Q&A box. And again, please remember, we cannot answer questions specific to your claim. Do not enter your social security number or your business identification number in the Q&A or chat field, as this recording will be available online. If you have technical difficulties or you're unable to ask your question, please send an email to obd_communications@oregon.gov and we will assist you. And our unemployment insurance listening panelists are available to answer your questions. They are Lisa, Tim, Carol, and Zulumar. And I will go ahead and add them to this So they're all visible. And Lindsay, I will remove your pin. Okay, so if you have a question in Spanish, please type it into the chat or raise your hand so that Zilomar may translate. If you have a question in another language, please type it into the chat and we will follow up with you after the webinar. We are now beginning the comment and questions section. Right now, I do not have any individuals who have signed up to ask a question. So please raise your hand if you would like to ask a question, and I will call on you in order. And when I call on you, please make sure you state your full name and tell us if you are making a comment or asking a question. And if you're joining us by phone, be sure to hit *6 to unmute yourself when you're called on so you can comment. And as a reminder, we cannot look into or resolve any person's claim in this public forum. It is not safe to put your information in the chat or question boxes in this public recorded forum. So I do not have any questions yet. So we will give it a little bit of time and see if anyone would like to comment. And so what you're seeing at the bottom of the screen, you'll be able to press the raise your hand button. Or again, if you do not want to do that, you can go ahead and put your questions in the chat, or you can put them in the Q&A box. Okay, so we have a hand raised. And so this is Ian, and Ian, I'm going to unmute you. So you can make your comment or you can make your question. Go ahead.
So I have a pandemic claim going. How would I sign up for regular unemployment insurance?
And so just before someone starts, I want to remind you that we cannot talk about anyone's personal claim, but as to a generic question, if we could have that answered. Tim, do you want to go ahead and answer that?
Sure. An individual can file a claim for unemployment insurance 2 ways: online via our online claim system, or by contacting the unemployment insurance contact center by phone.
Okay, thank you.
We have a question in the chat in English, wanting to know how to get back their benefits. And so again, that is more specifically related to a person's claim. And so again, we're not going to be resolving any personal claim questions. This is the time for you to be commenting on our availability rules. So I'll give it a few more minutes.
And for individual questions that people have, we do encourage you to, again, call our contact center or go online and submit your question through the Contact Us form. That way we can make sure that you get the assistance that you need.
And so what we can, so Lindsay and Tim, if either of you can give a brief overview of what the changes are to the availability rules while we're waiting for other questions, just real briefly.
Sure, I can go over parts of that. So our prior rules, and when I speak as to the prior rules, I mean the way the department administered the rules pre-pandemic. During the pandemic, the department administered temporary rules and other emergency actions related to availability. So my speaking to these rules are the changes that are being made pre-pandemic. The main changes are pre-pandemic or previously, an individual needed to be available during all of the days and hours that the occupation that they were seeking or doing, they needed to be available for all of the days and hours that work was performed. So if an individual performed work in an occupation that was could be performed all of the days and hours, then an individual had to be available and willing to seek and accept work that was performed during all of those days and hours. The updates as part of this rule allow an individual to be available during just one shift in which their occupation is performed. If their work is not performed on a shift-based schedule, then they would need to be available for at least 40 hours of work during the week, or full-time for that occupation. As Lindsay mentioned in her statement, full-time in some occupations could be less than 40 hours. So in those occupations, the individual would need to be available for full-time work, whatever that hour requirement be.
Thank you, Tim. So this is an opportunity for the public to let us know what you think about this change and to comment or ask questions. So you may raise your hand if you have a question or a comment about this proposed change. Okay, we've Ebony, and Ebony, I have unmuted you, so go ahead.
What I wanted to know is, would this require a restart of your application since the pandemic, since the PUA ended? Should you just go back in and restart your claim? Or is this only for people with a claim that's open actively?
Tim, can you respond to that?
The rule changes impact individuals receiving regular unemployment insurance benefits. The rule changes don't extend the filing period or the eligibility for PUA benefits. So in relation to that, an individual who is already on regular unemployment insurance at the time the rule was implemented, there is no new application process. They just need to begin meeting the requirements of this temporary rule.
So Ebony, does that answer your question? If not, then you can raise your hand again.
Yes, that pretty much answers it. So I'm just going to repeat basically what I heard is that if your claim has already been expired and you're not actively getting unemployment, this does not apply. This applies to people who are actively still getting unemployment, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And did you want to comment on that change or no?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, and I'm going to check the chat and see what we have here. There was a question about benefits ending, and again, we won't be talking about individual benefits. So again, if you would like to ask a question, or if you would like to make a comment on these rules, please raise your hand. If you do not want to ask the question, you may put the question in the chat, and we can then, I'll see what the question is and we can get it answered.
also to repeat what has been said, if you do have questions about your individual claim, we encourage you to contact us at the local, not the local, at the contact center, or file a question via our Contact Us form, which is available online.
And then we have a question from Ian, and he would like to know, how does someone start the process to file for benefits? So if someone could give a quick overview on that.
Sure. So the easiest way to access the online claim system is to go to employment.oregon.gov. That is the main employment department homepage. There is an unemployment section on that main page. And under that section, there is a link that states use the online claim system. When clicking on that link, it will take you to the online claim system. And then individuals needing to file a new initial claim would be choosing the option regular UI initial claim. And then you would go through the steps to complete your application. The process will take, depending upon whether you have information available, it probably takes around 30 minutes to complete the application from start to finish.
Thank you, Tim. And you'll see that in the chat, a link was put in. So you can use that link and you can go and begin the process. So again, I want to remind people that we don't want you putting personal information into the chat, because this is a public record, or it's a document, and anyone could see this webinar. So please do not do that. And so I think those of you that have these questions, please use our Contact Us form at unemployment.oregon.gov. And I will put that in the chat. And then we have a Contact Us form, and that is where, the best place to ask your questions. So again, this is a time for people to comment on this new rule that we're proposing, and this rule would impact people's availability to work. And so we want to hear your thoughts on that, please. And you can let us know your thoughts on this rule by raising your hand or by submitting something in the chat. And what we'll do is I'll make a few more calls, seeing if anyone wants to make a comment. And if there are no individuals who would wish to comment, then we will end this session at 3 p.m. And Lindsay just put in the chat that if people have questions, they also can call us. Okay, so Ian had a question about this new rule. He wants to know, you can explain the difference in a temporary rule and a permanent rule. So when did this come into effect, and how long would this last? And Tim, you want to take this one more time?
Sure. So the temporary rule was put in place on September 26th. The temporary rule is in effect for 6 months, at which point the department would consider letting the rule expire. So we would revert back to our prior rule, or we would go through the process of submitting a permanent rule request. And that would be based on the feedback that we received during these listening sessions and through other avenues as well.
Thank you, Tim. So now I'm going to call on Josh. So Josh, if you'd like to ask your question.
Yeah, hey everybody, not a question, just a comment. Just wanted to comment that I'm definitely in favor of this rule change. I think it does a big thing to.
So I'm sorry, Josh, would you please unmute yourself and start again, please?
Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to give a comment and say that I'm definitely in favor of this rule. I think that it does a lot to help working families, dual wage earner type families with some flexibility if they do run into unemployment, layoff type of situations, as well as the single family earners that may have childcare needs. So I just want to say thank you guys for putting this out there, and that I'm definitely in favor, and I think it will help a lot of individuals out there.
Thank you, Josh. So again, if you would like to make a comment, you can raise your hand and then I call on people in order, or you may put your comment in the chat. And if you have a question about this rule, you are more than welcome to ask a question to make sure that you understand it. Okay, we have another person that has a question. And so I hope I pronounced your name correctly, Kin. And so Kin, you want to ask your question and give us your full name?
Yes, my name is Kim Wee. My employment benefits end on September 4th. And I did contact to your office for twice. And then someone answered me. If I didn't work less 10 months or 500 hours, I'm not able to apply employment benefit. Is that correct?
So we cannot speak directly to your claim, but there can be a general response about that. And so Tim or Zulumar or Carol, either one of you want to take that?
I'll try to answer it. So eligibility for unemployment benefits requires that an individual have a certain amount of work and earnings during a period in which we call the base year. That period is we go back 5 quarters, and then we take the first 4 of those quarters, and we look at the hours and earnings that an individual worked and earned in that period. And so there are wage requirements and hours requirements that an individual must meet during that particular period in order to have basically establish a claim and receive a claim with a weekly benefit amount.
Okay, thank you, Tim. So it is 3 o'clock and we are happy to continue on taking comments or questions about this rule that is being proposed, this rule change. So I'll do a final call asking if someone would like to comment or if they have a question about this rule change. If you do, would you please, you can go ahead and click the raise your hand button and then I will call on you, or you can put it in the chat. And I'll just pause for a minute to see if anyone has any final questions or comments. Okay, so this concludes our listening session comment period. And we do have additional listening sessions available in case you have questions after today. And those dates and times are Tuesday, October 26th at noon, Thursday, November 11 at 6 p.m. And these are worker focused. And then our employer focused sessions are Wednesday, October 20th at 6 p.m., Wednesday, November 13th at noon, and Thursday, November 17th at 9 a.m. And you can also find this information on our website. So this listening session was recorded and we will post it on the Employment Department's webinar page at unemployment.oregon.gov/webinars. Thank you for taking the time to provide feedback and for participating today. We appreciate it very much.